welcome again to Henry's Blues House at the Bull's Head in Birmingham. This is called Blues Talking. It's the sensible, civilised bit evening before that rowdy music starts and gets you all dancing and things like that. This, I believe, is the first time we've actually chatted to a drummer. You know what a drummer is? He's the bloke who sits at the back and goes and gets the beers and things. And this drummer is he's sort of the go-to drummer around here. If anyone wants to a top-class band, the first guy to go to is the drummer, and the drummer that always go to is Roy Adams. So let's welcome Roy Adams.
Thank you, John.
Now, Roy, you and music. Where did you first remember hearing music, first encounter it, first got interested in it, before you even started thinking about playing?
Okay, well, pretty much as long as I can remember. From when I was about maybe 9, 10, 11. And my sister, who's actually here tonight, had a small dance set record player, and she was constantly playing Beatles. And I'd never heard this sound before, and I got really attracted to the sound of this band. Who were creating their own songs, and also doing some old R&B and blues songs. So that was about the first time, I guess I was about 9, 10. Yeah.
So it's the girly music of the Beatles that got you.
The girly music of the Beatles, yeah, initially, yeah.
Then you went on to the real band like the Rolling Stones, right?
Actually, I was never a Rolling Stones fan.
What's your band?
So initially the Beatles, then I sort of complete turnaround. I got into The Who, one of my first loves as a band, and from the drumming point of view, which was obviously Keith Moon. And that sort of turned me on to drumming, I think. And I remember going out and buying all the Who singles. And then I got into John Mayall. If we're talking, you know, obviously the blues connection. John Mayall was my first sort of key to the blues, I think.
Were you considering playing at that time?
I was quite a late starter actually playing drums. I don't think I picked up a pair of sticks till I was 15 or 16. So, I mean, I'm totally self-taught, which I never advocate, but that's the way I came through. And then through Keith Moon, and then hearing these great drummers who played with John Mayall, Ainsley Dunbar, Keith Hartley, Huey Flint, I think was the first guy I heard, and the shuffle rhythm, which is the cornerstone of every great blues band, that shuffle rhythm. I hadn't heard anything like it. You don't hear that rhythm on the radio at the time, you know. So that was my introduction to the blues.
So what was the point at which you decided to persuade your parents to buy you a drum kit?
I don't think I ever persuaded them. They obviously saw that I was really enthusiastic about music. And the usual thing, I had a pair of, I think my dad was a keen gardener, and he had these garden canes that I used to break into drumstick lengths and play on a stool or on some pots and pans. And obviously I was doing this, driving them crazy. And they eventually bought me, which was a fantastic first drum kit. It was a Gretsch drum kit, which was a champagne sparkle, beautiful orange champagne sparkle. And they were fantastic. They really supported me. So that was about 16, and then all I can remember was just playing hours every day. The neighbours loved it. Yeah.
What happened to drive you into touch with other musicians and ultimately come to play with them?
Okay, well again, initially that was through my parents, through my mother, because I'm quite a shy individual at that age. Quite laughing. And my mum worked with somebody whose partner was a bass player. And the usual thing, oh, you should come in here, my son is really, really good, yawn, you know. But eventually this guy came along and he heard me play in my mum's front room. And he said, oh, actually this kid's not too bad at all. So that was my first introduction to music. There's a guy called Stuart Duncan, who was a fantastic bass player, who also knows a lot of the local luminaries, John Caswell. You know what people I played with locally. John was the of a really good friend of this guy, Stuart Duncan, and then I sort of never looked back. So the things start snowballing from there on, I think. You know,
so you're similar age, are you, to Caswell?
I'm a little bit younger.
So, were you aware of him at that time?
No, this is really, we're talking about now, early 70s, I think. I first met John, let me think, through the country and western scene, because John's a great country player. And I first started working with John in the early 80s.
Is that your first band?
No, my first band.
Take us through that.
Okay, the very first band I played with was with this guy I just mentioned, Stuart Duncan, and a guy called John Thomas. Do you remember John Thomas? In a band called Budgie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I was at the time I was an apprentice toolmaker, and I absolutely hated it. I detested it. But they gave me a break because they knew I was in a band, and they offered me a gig at their social club. And that was my very first gig. And I remember the first ever song I played to people, and it was Crossroads, the Cream version. And obviously I went on to discover Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters and all those great people. But that was the first song I ever played in front of people, Crossroads.
It's like pulling teeth, isn't it? And which band was that?
You know, I don't actually know what it was called. I'm not sure we had a name at that time. So sorry, Jim, I can't help you.
I wonder how you get to go to a band and doing gigs, you're on a stage.
Oh, it's a long process. I suppose the first successful band of any note I played with was a band called Rainmaker, which was, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Which was mid-70s, and that was with Brian Badams, Mark Stanway, Keith Randall, Roger Heath, and we were playing all this crazy, really avant-garde, jazz rocky blues stuff, but that was about 75, 76.
You grew up in a very interesting generation locally, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I did.
I mean, really good players around. I think the touchstone of that generation is the fact they could play.
Yes.
No, really, they're good musicians.
Well, do you remember the sort of mid-70s when the Railway in Curzon Street, they had a different band every night. Roger Hill was there, Magnum. And what was interesting as compared to now, you had a different band every night playing different styles of music, and a lot of it was original music, and nobody was sounding the same. So, and I think in those days people really learned their craft, you know, as a musician, and everybody was chasing each other. Everybody was urging each other on to get better and better. So those were fantastic days, the mid-70s.
Who were the local stars when you sort of got onto the scene? Who were the big names?
I think the people I used to look up to were people like Roger Hill, a while later.
Steve Gibbons? Steve
Gibbons, of course. Bob Wilson, I went on to play with in Ruby Turner's band for nearly 20 years. But those were the people, slightly older than me, 4 or 5 years older than me. Those were our heroes, especially Steve Gibbons, with Bob Lamb on drums and Dave Carroll, Bob Wilson. And those were the guys we looked up to at that time, yeah.
It was a great era for local rock. I mean, I'm a guitarist like Dave Pritchard.
Yeah, I don't know him so well.
He's a study Gaz Morris.
Yes, Gaz, I know Gaz very well. And of course I played the original Henrys.
Yeah, I want to come on to that.
Oh, sorry.
But at that time, there's so many great rock players around, but none of them were emerging on a national scene. We had all the reggae bands coming through in the early 80s, like Steel Pulse and UB40 and Russell Youth all at the same time. Duran's came out, mid-70s?
Yeah, same period.
But the rock players that proliferated, got a lot of gigs, great standard. It didn't actually go anywhere.
No. But like you say, the melting pot of Birmingham in that period was just fantastic. Obviously the heavy metal thing, you know about the Sabbath, and but also the blues thing started coming through as well, didn't it, with Henrys and all that.
So tell me about your first encounter with Henrys.
Champion Jack Dupre. Do you remember? Well, you obviously do, yeah. And I can't remember who else. I can't remember how I even got hired for that, because I was still a young green musician at the time.
You're probably cheap.
Yeah, well, always cheap, yes. In fact, Colin Cooper, the original Climax
He played Henry's, didn't he?
Yeah, but his famous quote about me was Roy Adams, the best drummer in his price range. I still idiot. So yeah,
So you played
Henry's, and I remember being really scared because this guy was a black American blues artist, and I thought he's going to eat us alive, this guy. But he turned out to be a sweetheart, and I remember, I think it may have been Brian Badams on bass.
Yeah.
I can't remember who else, but maybe it was on guitar or keyboards, but it wouldn't have been keyboards because it was him. But yeah, so that was a great time for me. Yeah.
There's a very interesting bands come to a band in those days. Like Status Quo would play to an audience of 120 people, and
Yeah, is that true?
Bill Lizzie and
wow.
and Rory Gallagher.
Yeah.
It was great. So, sounds like good grounding. At what age did you go pro? Or did you sort of drift into it?
I guess my first pro gig was early 80s, and again, this was definitely with John Caswell. It was a country band, and it was Patsy Powell and the Good Timers.
Oh, well.
Remember that?
Yeah.
But I went from virtually nothing, from being with this jazz rock band where we all loved and we all thought we were marvellous and everything, but nobody was earning a penny. So John came up to me, we got to know each other a little bit, and he said, look, this is a wage, this is £100 per week, whether we gig or not. But of course you always gig, it was 7 nights every week, isn't it? And I did that for a couple of years, early 80s. But I decided after 2 years, I can't do this for the rest of my life, it's driving me crazy. God bless you, Patsy. But I had to get out of that and move on to Pastures New.
And the Pastures New
Was no more money again. So.
The Pastures New, what?
Well, a band called Resistor, which was Pete Oliver, Wild Tulsa. But then I did that for a couple of years, and I suppose my big break came in 1985. We'd been recording this Resistor album at Bob Wilson's studio, and Ruby Turner was about to sort of emerge onto the scene quite big. She had a new album out, she had a record deal with Jive Records with Billy Ocean, and her drummer at the time was Bob Lamb, previously from Steve Gibbons. And Bob Wilson had heard me play doing this album, and Bob became really ill because he had Crohn's disease, he had to have surgery, and so the drum seat became available and I got recommended. Would you like to maybe try for the Ruby Turner band? Yes, please. So I remember going for the audition at Rich Bit Studios, met Miss Turner for the first time, who actually didn't even acknowledge my presence at the audition, but that's Ruby. And but I got the gig, and from getting the gig, the next thing was 6 weeks on tour with Ruby and Billy Ocean.
Fantastic.
That was about 85, I think, yeah.
So that was your exclusive job for a long while?
For nearly 20 years I did Ruby, yeah. So, yeah. Great singer, fabulous singer. Yeah.
So, what happened? Did her dates dry up, or did you decide
Well,
to
no,
move on?
what really happened was pretty much the same time as I started playing with Ruby, I met Colin Cooper at just a jam scenario at the Selly Park Tavern. We probably all know where that is. And I just I was asked up to play 2 songs with Colin Cooper. And he came up to me after and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I've just actually joined the Ruby Turner band." But he said, "I really like the way you play drums. We need a drummer. Are you able to do it?" I said, "Well, probably not actually." But so, as it turned out, I was able to juggle it for the next nearly 17 years, juggle both bands. And they were both totally different musically. I mean, you know about the Climax Blues Band, great, fantastic one of the great British blues bands. So, back to your initial question, it eventually, caught up with me after 17 years. I couldn't carry on doing both gigs.
So you quit Ruby?
I did, yeah.
Did you still ignore him?
No, we're friends. I saw her last year on the plane to Barcelona and seen her for about 5 years. But we're still in touch on Facebook, and we were good friends, and we spent a lot of time on the road together, And I made some really good friends, Bob Wilson, who I mentioned. Paul Turner was on bass guitar, who plays with Jamiroquai now.
Great.
It was a great band.
So when you joined Climax, who's the originals? I knew Climax at the beginning because they used to be regulars at Henry's, And when I lost Black Sabbath, I was offered management of Climax, and I declined. Didn't have the right band to follow Sabbath somehow.
They went on to sign with Warner Brothers, actually.
They signed with Big Bear. They didn't have to afford you. So, who's in the band? The original?
When I first joined, it was Connie, the original singer, and also Derek Holt.
Good player.
Who was the original bass player. And these guys had written the hits, which the big hit was Couldn't Get It Right, which is internationally acclaimed, and also number 10 in America, and also number 7 or 8 here, and also a couple of other big hits. So that was the band that I joined, which was also Les Hunt on guitar and George Glover on keyboards, who are still in the band to this day. Yeah.
You still work with them?
I do. We have a new album out, released last year, and we're doing really well. We had some great reviews. It went to #1 in the Amazon Blues charts last year. So that's given us a platform to sort of, a lot of resurgence and interest within the band. So we're touring. We're off to Europe in 2 weeks, Germany, Switzerland. Yeah.
So what do you do? 20, 30 shows a year, maybe?
Probably more than that, actually. Now, I mean, there was that period when Colin died, unfortunately, 8 or 9 years ago, and we were on that verge of, is this band going to continue, because he was such a big force, but we had the blessing of his family that they wanted us to continue. So we have a brand new lineup. We have Graham D on vocals, Chris Aldridge on saxophone, who's an absolute monster player. Me, Neil Simpson on bass, and the guys I've just mentioned, Les Evans and George Glover, and that's the current lineup, and we're still going strong. Yeah.
Would you clarify one thing? There's reputedly another breakaway Climax in America.
This is back to Derek Holt.
Yes,
I mean, this is actually some touchy subject, so I won't dwell on it too much. But Derek has decided, after leaving the band of his own accord some 30 years ago, to suddenly come and decide to make a Climax Blues Band, which is basically nothing to do with the guys that have been keeping this name alive, slogging around Europe, making albums. So it's a bit of a sore point, but that's small potatoes.
Okay. So also in your on your CV, there's some other interesting names. Where does Steve Gibbons? No, you take us through it chronologically. So you with Climax.
Yes.
And work was not so.
Well, it was actually. It was really.
So how do you find time for all this other stuff? You're always on the road.
Well, I've always played.
Why you never respond to any emails, any phone calls, anything.
It's not true, Jim. I should get there eventually. I mean, it's nice that people ask you, isn't it? And I guess if you've been around for a long, long time, you get a certain reputation. People call you. So I mean, I have played with quite a lot of people, from Misha Paris, Alexander O'Neill, Gilbert O'Sullivan, and one of the big ones was Chuck Berry.
Tell me two things. How did that come about? And how was the man?
Okay, Chuck Berry. I did a show in the square in Barcelona in front of 70,000 people. The reason that came about was the Climax Blues Band were on the same bill, and part of the deal, because he never took a band on the road, he was always a pickup band that he used, Part of our deal, we would do our own show, and then 3 of us, keyboards, bass and drums, would back Mr. Berry, which we were all really, really excited about. And of course, you know the man's reputation for being slightly difficult. But, I mean, we had no rehearsal. We had a 10-minute meeting with the man before we went on in front of these thousands and thousands of people. And I've got time for a couple of anecdotes.
Listen, talk about Chuck Berry as long as you like.
Okay, so we were ushered into Mr. Berry's dressing room. He never looked up and said hello to us. And I think Derek was the bass player at the time. He said, Mr. Berry, do you have a set list for tonight's show? He said, I don't do set lists. He said, who's the drummer? I sort of frighteningly said, yeah. He said, when I do that, you stop. So, at this point, Derek said, well, any idea of the opening song, the first song? He says, yeah, be a Chuck Berry song. So that was our rehearsal. but once we got up there, what a fantastic, to play with a legend. There's actually clips on YouTube of the performance, so if anybody wants to maybe check them out with me. We were all looking extremely terrified on there, so yeah, but what an experience playing with that man.
Did you keep in touch with him?
But,
Did you keep in touch with him?
no.
If you're going to be as rude as Chuck Berry, you've got to be as good as Chuck Berry.
Well, basically, he must have had such a hard time in his formative years, his early years, when he was ripped off by promoters, by agents, by whatever, and he had obviously made the decision, this is never going to happen to me again. I do know that the money for the show was paid up front in cash, and the allocated time for a show was just one 60-minute set. And of course, because it's Chuck Berry, he's going to get an encore, isn't he? But he won't go back on until you come up with another $2,000 or whatever the currency is. So I saw that firsthand. Yes, yeah.
We had that here.
Yes, yes. So, but what a great experience.
So you think he was only slightly more difficult than Steve Gibbons, right?
Steve's a darling. In fact, is he here somewhere?
Yes, but don't let on.
Steve's.
What are we doing with Steve? I mean, he's the epitome of rock and roll, isn't he?
Absolutely, a real local hero, yeah.
So, do you record with him?
I've never recorded, I've only ever done gigs. I was never actually in the Steve Gibbons band, I've just done sort of depth gigs for Steve, but...
so now you just come off tour with another local, national, international, interstellar legend, Roy Wood.
Yeah, with Roy. I've been with Roy for 25 years.
I didn't know the time you've been with Roy, and the time you've been with Ruby, and the time we were in Chicago. You were 132 years old.
That's about right, actually, yeah. So. But yeah, Roy, I've been with Roy a long time, and I'm another absolute local legend, as you know. And we tour most years, in fact every year. This year was a little bit shorter than tours we've run in the past, because he's not been well, the guy's in his 70s now. But we do this big show every year at the Symphony Hall. You probably know that. I think we've been doing it for 7 or 8 years now. And the idea is that Roy goes on and does his show, we have an opening act, and then we have various guests who we actually get to play with the band. And it's been fantastic over the years. I think we've got to play with Chas and Dave, which is my brother-in-law John's his hero, so we didn't care about anything else. In fact, I got to play with Chas and Dave, ladies day. Mary Wilson this year. For me, last year was the one, because I actually got to play with Mark King from Level 42, who's an absolute hero. Yeah. So that was terrifying, to go and play at the Symphony Hall with Mark King. Paul Young, Proclaimers, so that's been a yearly thing. So yeah, Roy Wood as well, I guess.
And you still have find time amongst all that to run your own band?
Well, I've got a few local bands. Yeah, you can probably see me playing around Birmingham a lot with the Quiet Men, which is a lovely little band with Dan Machin and Colin Brown, fantastic little trio. Also,
who was Colin with?
Colin used to be Kate Bush's keyboard player, and he also plays with Barker James Harvest. Yeah, Dan's just this local fantastic guitarist from Leek. And I also play with my partner, Emma Johnson, who you know, she's got a new album out. I'm going to give her a plug. She's in LA at the moment, so she's not around. So Emma's a boogie-woogie pianist who's fantastic. So I like to go and see Jam, who've actually played here quite a few times, and they're all old friends, Bob Wilson, Frank Walker, Brian Badams, who plays with Elkie Brooks. So I do all that as well. I get to play locally. And
finally, before we move on to question time, excuse yourself over to me, Christy.
I didn't think you knew about that, James.
You worked with Tony?
I've worked with Tony, yes. Tony's great. I mean, another...
Sweetest guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's lovely. He lives just down the road in Litchfield. I've toured with Tony. I've toured Germany. I've also done gigs in it. And if you want to know how, again, it's because you know the people in the band. It was Danny McCormack, the keyboard player with Roy. So that was the connection there. But Tony's lovely, and I got to play Is This the Way to Amarillo? So,
Once or twice. Yes. Listen, Roy Adams, this is your opportunity. Questions, please.
When you're not on the road, what music do you like to listen to?
Well, again, it's pretty much like I play a wide spectrum of music, and that's my taste in music. I'm a big jazz fan, actually, a huge jazz fan, because jazz is the music of unemployment. I actually play the trumpet once a month in Bilston. Do you know the trumpet?
Yeah.
With a fantastic female saxophonist called Patsy Gamble. So I'm a huge jazz fan, but also, any music, even classical, should you say.
Classical.
Mozart, yeah.
You have got white taste.
Sing us one of some Mozart big hits.
So yeah, pretty much like I think as a drummer, when I was young, I was always scared about arriving at a gig and somebody would ask me to play a style that I couldn't actually play. So I think one of my big sort of pluses as a drummer is that I can sort of get through most styles of music, and I think that's what a lot of the younger players do these days. There's some fantastic young drummers around, or some scary players, and I think they all encompass the whole spectrum of music. But I think you have to do that too.
So it's very flexible then.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I can cover most.
I've got a question.
Okay.
I know you're prevaricating, get away from it. Give me your three favourite drummers, the drummers you really respect.
Okay, that's three. Okay, Steve Gadd probably.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because that guy's so versatile. He's played from Barbra Streisand to Chick Corea to pop gigs. Jazz-wise, Tony Williams and Buddy Rich. Yeah, Tony Williams probably, and of course Buddy Rich and Charlie Watts as well. If you're going back to that sort of simple, play exactly what's required for the song. Charlie Watts like that, and so did Ringo. Really, I hear a lot of people sort of criticising Ringo. No, because he played exactly what was right for every Beatles song.
So rock drummer, who would you rate as one of the best rock drummers?
Ian Pace, John Bonham, local lad. Yeah, John Bonham. Yeah, I met John once, but he was extremely inebriated, so I didn't have much of a conversation.
Come on, let's have some questions from the floor. Chico, you're normally up front.
Where's your next set of gigs?
Well, my next gig is a blues festival with the Climax Blues Band in 2 weeks, which is in Skegness. How romantic is that? Yeah, it is a good festival. Yeah, there's some really big names just over the whole weekend, and then I go to Europe early February for 2.5 weeks with Climax Blues Band. Yeah, there's nothing with Roy now till next Christmas, so he sort of hibernates now until November this year.
What's the hassle with taking your drum kit with you to Europe?
Well, I don't have to, because what happens, we fly there, and then all the gear is hired. So it's all provided. You use the sheet, you write down what you require, and then when you get to Europe, it's not always right, but it's a drum kit, isn't it? It's still going to sound like me, whatever. So.
Two more questions.
So Roy, any preferred, I know you're not in the line of business of advertise drum kits and drum producers, but any preferred drum kit?
Yeah, well, I think I said to Jim earlier, my very first drum kit was a Gretsch drum kit that my parents bought me. And I bought a 70s Gretsch kit last year, and that's probably my favourite kit. I've got about 4 or 5 drum kits, but that one particularly I'm very fond of, because of the initial sort of connection with being my first drum kit. Yeah. But I've got a sort of endorsement deal with Sabian cymbals, who've sort of been good to me for the last 35 years or so. Yeah. Cheers.
Well, thank you for your kind attention. It's been illuminating. It's the first drummer we've ever had, I believe.
First and last.
Aren't they an interesting species? Put your hands together for Roy Adams.
Thank you very much.